Hello everyone, and welcome to the RV Inspection and Care channel. I'm Dwayne and I'm a certified RV inspector, and today we're going to be talking about my top 5 cheap RV travel tips. And these are tips that we've learned through experience over our last few years of full timing. And we really wish we knew about these when we first started out, but you sort of learn about it as you go along. And so we're going to share them with you because they're cheap. They really don't cost much money at all. Number 1 is we recommend that you use tension rods. Sometimes they're called cupboard bars, but use tension rods in cabinets and places where you want to keep things in place while you travel. You know, when you're going down the road, it's very easy for things to jostle around. In fact, we've been going down the road and find that whole doors just open up and bottles come flying out, and sometimes they go on the floor and create a mess. Or, you know, we've also had a problem with our washer dryer. When the doors open up and the washer dryer comes out, and then we have to go back and push it back in. In fact, in one case, it came out so far that the vent in the back disconnected. So how do you keep these things in place? Well, tension bars work great. Here's an example of some tension bars that are used in our cabinets to keep bottles in place so that they don't come flying out. And then here's another example of tension bars that we use to keep our washer dryer in place as well. So we don't even have to worry about it. And it's a great savings because you don't have to worry that even if things jostle around and doors open, well, you don't have to worry that anything's going to make a big mess. So that's number 1 on our 5 cheap RV travel tips. Number 2, I recommend that you use furniture bumper pads on your slides, on the sides, to flip the seals of the slides in and out when you travel. You know, when you put your slide out, the seal that goes around the edge of the slide should flip completely out. Now, I know for sure from doing a lot of RV inspections that many RVers don't notice that their slide seals are not totally flipped out. And when they're not flipped out, you don't have them in place where they should be, and you could experience water intrusion and other problems. So you want your slide seals to flip in when the slide comes in and flip back out when the slide goes out. So how do you handle that? If your seals are a little stubborn, what do you do? Well, you could manually go around and flip them out. I had a slide that the seals were just a pain. They were constantly not flipping out like they should. So I would be manually flipping them every time, and I got tired of that. So here is a way you can avoid that. You just get these little furniture bumper pads like you see right here. They're only about a ½ an inch wide, and they have self-adhesive on the back, and you can just clean the side of the slide area there with alcohol and put it right on the slide. And I usually place them about 12 inches apart, all the way up the side of the slide. They're really inconspicuous. Nobody hardly ever notices them. But when you put the slide in, well, it'll flip that seal in. When you put the slide out, it flips the seal out for you. And now I don't even have to think about my slide. I know that these seals are being flipped the way they should because of these little inexpensive furniture plastic bumper pads. So that's RV cheap travel tip number 2. Now, number 3, I recommend that you consider using 2-sided tape to hold down items that are on countertops or tabletops or dresser tops or things like that when you travel. The kind of tape that I'm talking about is right here. If you can see, it's heavy duty. It's kind of thick, and it really works well. So if you have something that normally sits in one place, you know, it has its spot on a tabletop, on a counter, or whatever. Well, then why not just lock it in that place? And that way you don't have to store it every time you travel. When we first started out, we were storing all kinds of things because we didn't want them flying around while we're going down the road. Well, now we use two-sided tape on several objects that we don't want to move, and they just stay right where they are. Like, for instance, right here is one of our knickknacks that we have on the dining table, and it's held right in place by two-sided tape. Here is our butcher block for our knives, and it's held right in place. We never have to think about it when we're traveling. Now, the good thing about this two-sided tape is not only is it removable, because you can take it right off, and when you put it underneath something, it's not there for life. You haven't screwed it down. But it's not only removable, it's reusable, believe it or not. So this kind of tape is kind of like amazing. We've really enjoyed using it. We've used it for a lot of things. You can put it on your walls, on your countertops, on almost any surface, and it really works well. So I highly recommend this two-sided tape. Also, by the way, you can cut it to any length you want, and that's a great thing as well. Now, my fourth tip for cheap RV travel is to use floor protectors for your slide rollers when you put the slides in and out as you're getting ready for travel. A lot of RVers complain about the rollers underneath the slides going over their carpet or maybe over their hard floor and making marks or leaving stuff behind that makes it look bad. Well, a way to handle that very cheaply is something right here. This is just a cheap little cutting plastic sheet that you can get almost anywhere. And this sheet, if you put it down underneath where the slide roller is as it goes in, just find where the rollers are underneath and line them up underneath, like you can see right here. Well, then when the roller goes in, it's going to roll on the top of the sheet, not on your carpet, not on your hard floor. And it's so cheap. It's also very light. It's easy to store. There's just all kinds of great things about these kitchen cutting sheets. They're normally used for cutting in the kitchen, but it's really great for protecting your floors from your RV slide rollers too. And they're very doable. All right, now my last cheap RV travel tip is that if you have a big rig and, fifth wheel, a larger motorhome, things like that, well, then I recommend that you use Google Satellite for your big rig travel. And I'm talking about the satellite feature on Google Maps. I'm not saying you use Google Maps for planning out your travels. I don't do that. But if I know that I'm going to be stopping at a fuel station or, I'm not sure about the campground I'm going to or something like that, well, then I make sure what I'm getting into with Google Maps. And as you can see right here, I start with the map where I'm going. I then switch that to the satellite view. Once I had the satellite view, then I expand that so that I can see what I'm dealing with. I see the place I'm going. And that way I know exactly how I'm getting in, getting around in there, getting out, how much space I have to move around, and things along that line. It has saved us many, many times, because sometimes we were planning to go to, like, for instance, a fuel station that we were planning to use. And then we got on Google Maps and realized, man, you just can't get around in there. So it can save you a lot of difficulty and trouble if you use Google Maps in satellite mode before you go off the road. Now, this is especially true If you're a big rig and towing something, you really need to make sure what you're getting into. Now, if you have a smaller rig, this is not that much of a big thing. But for those of us with bigger RVs, this is a lifesaver. All right, now, that's my top 5 cheap RV travel tips that I wanted to share with you. But do you have any cheap RV travel tips that you can share with me and with us? I would love to hear from you. If you do, please comment below and let us know. Well, that's it for now. Have safe and happy travels, my friends. Until next time.